Alright, so here we are in Ubuntu 15.10, and yes, this is in a VMware, or VMware workstation to be specific. Now, I know I said this before, but I cannot stress this enough. This tutorial is going to be entirely in a virtual machine software, which I highly recommend you do, as there's going to be an extra step to boot USB drives within virtual machines. But if you're also watching this without a VM and you're going to be doing this without one, watch the tutorial first and then follow along on the second viewing. With that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so my USB drive is right here. It's a 32 gigabyte drive. It's called test, but we're going to go ahead and wipe it. So go ahead and open up your respective partition editor. Mine's going to be gparted. If you don't have a partition editor installed, I recommend you install one now. I recommend installing gparted, as that's what I'm going to be using in this tutorial. Now look for your USB drive. It should be relatively easy to find, as it should be your second drive in the VM. Now, of course, if you have more than one, or if you're following along on an actual computer, the drive letter may vary. Speaking of, memorize the device path, as we're going to be using this a lot in this tutorial. So, here's the drive, and here's the partition. Now we're going to go ahead and wipe the entire thing, so delete all the partitions, and make a new one. Make sure that the file system is FAT32, and if for those who have 16 gigabytes or more, I recommend splitting the partition in half, or using half of the drive. The reason why is that there are some distros, if you want persistence, you need a separate partition for them. So this is just more of, if you guys want to use this for any other reason for future persistent distros, it's right there. So I'm going to call this multi-boot. Click add. Click the check mark and hit apply. And I'll come back when this is completed. Alright, so our USB is all set up. So what we have to do now is install Syslinux. Now, I found that it's best, and I'm going to use this. We're going to be installing Syslinux straight from the source. Don't worry, we're not compiling anything. The program's already compiled. We just have to run it. Now, there's a few things we need to actually install, but we'll get to it when we need to. So go ahead and open up your browser and go to Syslinux, or search your browser in Syslinux. Click the Syslinux wiki. Go to download and kernel.org. Now again, the commands and links for the websites that I'm going to will be available in the description below, along with the sources that I use. So go all the way down, and as of this video, the latest one is 6.03. Download this. You can use zip if you want, but it depends if your distro is able to support zip. If not, you can go ahead and install the package for it, but regardless. So now I already have it installed. Let's go to downloads. Just do right click, extract here or similar. Go to Syslinux, BIOS, and Linux will be right here with the programs that we need to run. Now go back out and let's go ahead and open up a new terminal. Now we need to install a program, and one more for those who are running a 64-bit operating system in Linux. The first is sudo apt-get install mtools. We're going to need this if we want to install Syslinux on a FAT32 format. You know what I mean. Go ahead and hit install. Put in the password and it should install. Of course, I already have it installed. Do clear. And for those 64-bit users, The thing that you need to install, or else you won't be able to run the program, is sudo apt-get install libc-i386. Hit enter. Put in, and just go ahead and let it install. Say yes, all that fun stuff, and it will be installed. All right. So actually installing Syslinux. Do cd, and just simply grab and drop the folder onto here as a great shortcut, and hit enter. Do a quick ls just to make sure that you got the right file or folder. And what we have to do is sudo /syslinux-i for install -dev -sdb, or whatever drive letter or location of your USB is in, and click, and put in a 1 for the first partition. This is important, and hit enter. Now let's go ahead and open up multi-boot, and as you can see, it has been installed properly if you have ldlinux.c32 and ldlinux.sys. Now go ahead and have this in a separate window, as we're gonna have to put in a few modules. Now these are essential if you want to run this bootloader in USB. We're gonna need these. So go to conv32, and below here we'll list all the files that you need and where they are. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip ahead a bit. Alright, so here's all our files right here. Now these are the essential for a simple menu. Now, of course, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, just simply go to documentation and look under menu. It's just text, and this thing will tell you what it's talking about. Alright, so we're going to cheat a little, and in the description is a link to a document, which will be the Syslinux.cfg. This is something that we can go ahead and put in. I just realized I put that in by mistake without realizing it. My bad. But this is what we're going to be using to get the whole to actually go. So since we have everything here, we have one more thing that we have to do. Go out of conv32 back to the BIOS and go to mbr. Or actually go back to the terminal, do cd, and go to mbr. Now this command is actually quite lengthy, so bear with me. The command is this: sudo ddbs equals 440 space count equals 1 space conv equals notrunc if equals mbr.bin of equals and your USB drive path, sudo, and then after that do a semicolon, sudo parted dev sdb set 1 boot on. This will put in the mbr onto the drive, along with setting the boot flag on for us to actually boot the bootloader. So hit enter, and that's it. All we have to do now is actually test. Now before we continue adding any OSs, we gotta make sure that this thing works. So let's go ahead and completely eject the USB. So what we're going to be using for, if you want to boot USB drives in VMware, you got to use a program that's called plop bootloader. And yes, I'm dead serious. It's called plop. Now what you want to go to is www.plop.at, and when you get there, just click the boot manager, download, and download the latest one, unzip it, and there should be an ISO. Link the VM to that ISO and it'll start up. So, and I'll show you what it looks like. So let's go ahead and power on. Hit OK. And this is plop. Pretty much if you have a system that can't boot in USB, this will be your friend. Now, let's go ahead and actually eject if you accidentally had your USB automatically connect when on boot. Just go ahead and just disconnect it and reconnect. Mainly because I found out that if you have this plugged in, when the thing is booting, then the thing crashes. I do not know why. So let's go ahead, reconnect, and reconnect. Alright, and let's go to click USB. And if everything's done right, this is what you should see. This is what you should see. If you're seeing this, then congratulations, you have set up Syslinux. It's all set to go. What we have to do next is put in the OSs. Alright, so we tested our bootloader. Syslinux is all set to go. All we have to do now is just add in the OSs, get them all configured so they will boot from it, and we're all set to go. So first off, go ahead and find the distros that you want to use. For various reasons, I'm going to be using Debian based distros for various reasons. Going to go ahead and open this in a new tab, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make a new folder. Going to make one for Ubuntu and one for Debian. Go ahead and open up the ISO using the archiver, or if you're using Ubuntu or something similar, open it up with the disk image mounter. It's just really fast and I highly recommend it. Go ahead, just grab everything and just do a drag and drop. Now what's going to happen, and the image that you're seeing right now, if you see this error, don't worry about it. It's just that FAT32 just doesn't support Linux symbolic links. So it's fine. We're still able to run Ubuntu or any live distro just fine. It's just that we're just not going to have all the links. Which honestly, what we're going to be doing, it's not going to be much of a problem. So I'll go ahead and do a time skip when both Ubuntu and Debian are both on the USB. Alright, so Debian and Ubuntu are both in. So all we have to do now is just set up the Syslinux config so it'll link. Now I know I glossed over this earlier, but pretty much the sysconfig file that is available in the description pretty much explains what each thing does. Now of course, what you're seeing now may change in the future, either because of people pointing out something wrong, or I find something and I change it. So this is bound to change, but the whole point of it should be the same, which shows you how everything works for the most part. Alright, so what we do is we change the label to Ubuntu, and we do the same for the file path. And we're going to add another entry for Debian. So label Debian menu label Debian. And let's just do a quick copy and paste. Except we're going to go ahead and change the directory to Debian, and that should do it. So we're going to go ahead and save, but we're going to go ahead, eject, and go back to plop, because we want to make sure that everything is working okay. so we don't have to do anything extra whatsoever. So let's go ahead and completely remove the USB. Excuse me. All right. We'll go ahead and run plop. Okay. Plug the USB back in. Run the USB. It goes. And okay, so that one is working just fine. Now, of course, that's not going to work because we still have to tell Ubuntu where the files are now. It's no longer on a disk, or it's on a folder now. So let's go ahead and do a quick restart. Go ahead and run again. Whoops. Helps to reconnect the thing. One moment. All right. So Debian, and yeah, looks like everything is working just fine. So let's go ahead and go back to Ubuntu or Linux distro, wherever you're using. And let's go ahead and configure the isolinux files, so that way it will boot properly on the USB. All right, so let's go ahead and go to Ubuntu first and get that started. And we're not going to go for isolinux, but instead the txt file. This will have everything that we need. So what we're going to do with this is kind of a couple things. First off, we're going to change this to Ubuntu. We're going to change the file location. So for kernel, it will be /ubuntu/ everything else. File equals /ubuntu, all that fun stuff. And for nintrd, we'll do /ubuntu Casper. Now we're actually going to go ahead and move this to the first thing on the append area right here. Now, for the record, at least for me, I found out that apparently placement does matter here. So this here first, and we're actually going to add a couple of things. We're going to add the live media path, so that way Ubuntu knows where to go for the live. And we're also going to add one more called ignore UUID. We're also going to go ahead and add in cd-rom equals d detect /try -usb equals true, and that should do it. All right. So let's go ahead and save. And let's go over to Debian. Now, this is actually different than Ubuntu, because instead of a text file or whatever, it's actually in the live one, in the live configuration file. If you ever find yourself lost, just open up with gedit, the menu configuration file. Open up with gedit and look for the configuration files that are included here, as they'll most likely have the files that you need. Now for this, what we're going to be adding is, well, more or less the same thing that we did last time. We're going to add the live media, the cd-rom /detect try USB true. And I will have this in the description below. No prompt. boot equals live. And this seems to work. This one is kind of more of an option, at least for me. But pretty much it's just setting things up so that way, to be completely honest, like I said, this is more of an option, but you can add this if you want. If it doesn't seem to work, just go ahead and add it. Just go ahead and add it and see what happens. All right. Last thing we just need to do is we just need to add is the new location of each thing. So it will be /Debian, and make sure that we didn't do anything wrong here. All right, let's go ahead and click save, and let's go ahead and disconnect this thing one more time, and we shall run plop one more time. Power on. Plug in the floppy. USB. Running USB. All right, and cross your fingers that this works. All right, so this is actually kind of interesting. For whatever reason, either because of the distros I'm using or because of plop, it refuses to load in the virtual machine. So I went ahead and plugged it into my laptop and it worked just fine. So if you're having issues getting plop to run your USB, just go ahead, unplug it, and plug it into your actual PC, actually boot your USB and see if you're able to make it and see if it actually runs. If it doesn't, go ahead and go back and check your settings and see if there's anything that has been misspelled or if there's anything that you may have missed. So with that in mind, we're just going to go ahead and go to the next section. Alright, so with that in mind, if you're here just for a live USB, then great, you have a live multi-boot USB. You can also go ahead and apply this to the installations as well. That should work. The ones that we did for live, that should work for everything else in terms of having it so you can install and other things like that. Feel free to correct me in the comments below. Now, for adding persistence for the live, I'm only going to show one way for one distro, because there are some Linux classes that use this to teach students how the bootloader works or something similar. So, sorry guys, I'm not going to reveal everything. And this one, there's actually another way that's much easier, but I'm going to show you guys this other one instead, just because. So this one is going to be for Debian. And remember when I said that we should split the USB in half because there are persistence that rely on a different partition? Well, that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to do a new one, change this to ext3, but we're gonna change it to live-rw. That's what the partition name is going to be, and let's go ahead and shrink this to about 2 gigabytes. Hit add, and let's go ahead and apply. Okay, so let's go ahead and exit out of this. We'll go ahead and open this up. And since there seems to be an issue, what we're going to do is do sudo nano media, your username, because it'll be the same, live rewrite, and we're going to name this persistence. That CFG. Let me just make sure I spell that correctly. CPSISTENC. All right, hit enter, password, and all we're going to do is do /space union. Do X, yes, enter, and there it is. All we have to do is just do one more thing, and that's the Debian isolinux live. And the only thing that we're going to be adding here is after the boot dash live, we're going to be putting in persistence space persistence dash label equals live dash rw. Now what this does is, at least the persistence label, it will look for any partition, file, anything that will have this name on it. And persistence, which is pretty much will tell Syslinux that, hey, there is a persistent drive here, and all you have to do is just find it right here. Go ahead and save, and instead of putting it into plop, go ahead and place it into your computer and boot. If you got Debian going, that's great. Go ahead, make a file or anything, see what happens, and if it works, great, you did it. You now have persistence in Debian. And that's it for this tutorial. I hope you like it. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.